Welcome to the third episode of the Select Characters podcast, a podcast about video games. We like talking about video games as much as we like playing them. My name is Chris, I'll be your host, and as always, I am joined by my two co-hosts. One of them is, you know him as the guy with the voice, the most relaxed pose imaginable. Samuel, hi man.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Kind of pumped for this episode, actually, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, me too.
And the other one is the only one out of the three of us with any journalistic integrity whatsoever. Enrique, how you doing, man?
Integrity is a strong word, but I'll take it. How's it going?
All right. Yeah, I'm doing fine.
I'm excited for this episode.
Yes. All right. So, without any further ado, then let's start the show. So, what have you guys been playing this week?
I've been playing some Mountain Blade a little bit. All the mod talk kind of got me back into that for a second.
Right.
Been real busy, but it's still fun to stand on the top of a ladder and just forward hand hack dudes for about 45 minutes. It's very cathartic and zen. And since you're defending it, it's like all the slaughter with none of the downside. You get to hold the moral and the literal high ground.
You like chivalry then?
I think so, yeah. I played it for about 10 minutes and I was digging it, so I would like to get more into that.
Yeah.
That's really about all I've had time for this week. I did play the Splatoon test fire, and
Right.
That was pretty cool. I think that aiming with a gamepad is a pretty interesting concept. Having the gyroscope is actually pretty close to using a mouse.
Interesting.
It's cool. It takes a second to get the hang of it, and then it's almost second nature in a really creepy way, but it just fits. It's pretty cool. But, they only let you play it for an hour, so I can't make any solid opinions on it, but I think it's got some potential.
All right, then. So, Enrique, what have you been playing?
I've actually been replaying Sleeping Dogs, which, as old as that game is, I always go back to play it at least once a year, just because it's so much fun.
That's a fantastic game. It's like one of the few games that actually, like, the city actually feels alive.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, the combat's great, the steering, like, the driving around it's just arcadey enough to, where it's not frustrating when you do the races. I don't know, like, the whole gameplay, it's just, every time I play it, even though I know the story, I know the plot twist, it's just a blast.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
What do you play it on?
PC, actually, but I use a controller because it just feels a little bit easier. It's such a weird blend of genres because it's got, like, the Arkham Knight kind of style combat system where, it's very kung fu oriented. You're fighting like 8 guys at once, counters, reversals, environmental takedowns, and all that. But it's such a fun experience. I mean, it reminds me of like those old, like Chop Socky movies, like, Hard Boiled with Chow Yun-fat and like all those old, Hong Kong police dramas where it's like a lot of guns, a lot of like kung fu, and it's just, it's fun.
Yeah, I remember playing an Xbox game. Was it Stranglehold?
Yep, Stranglehold, which was actually technically a video game sequel to the movie.
That was a pretty good game.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. It's just fun gameplay.
I need to replay it as well. I've got it installed on my PC somewhere, so I just need to boot it up. Maybe I'll do that later tonight.
I bought it when it first came out on PlayStation, I want to say, because I think Square Enix had a bunch of like exclusive content for it, and then I actually rebought it on Steam when they had it on Steam sale because they had the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC and all the costumes and outfits and stuff like that.
What about you, Chris? What have you been playing?
I've been playing Race the Sun. It was free on the PlayStation Plus thing, and it's basically an endless runner where you fly a spaceship in 3D, just like in third person, and you have to dodge obstacles and stuff like that, and pick up power ups to essentially race the sun, because it's game over once the sun sets, so you can pick up all these power-ups to turn back time a little bit so the sun goes higher up in the sky again. And it's cool. The music's amazing. It's very minimalistic in terms of visuals, but the music's awesome. It's a very tight experience. And it's also really frustrating. It's quite hard. It doesn't really ease you into anything. But it was definitely cool, and I'll definitely keep on playing that because I want to get better at it.
Is it a bullet hell type game?
No. It's more like an endless runner thing.
Huh.
It's like from a third-person perspective, so the camera's behind your spaceship.
Okay.
And you race towards the horizon and dodge all sorts of obstacles and stuff like that. It's really cool. You should check it out. I think it's on PC as well. Don't imagine that it's too expensive because it's an indie game as far as I know. But it's really good.
I think I happened to catch a glimpse of somebody playing that, and it looked like the old browser game where you're driving a triangle and you have to dodge the squares. But
It's like that. It's definitely like
but
that.
like much nicer as far as presentation goes.
That was actually all I've been playing besides GTA 5. But I spoke about that game for the past 2 weeks, so I'm not going to do that again because my opinions on that game have not changed.
I'm hoping to form some opinions on that game.
Oh, once you get it, let me
Yeah,
know.
one day soon.
All right. Well, if that is all that we've been playing, then we'll move on to the first topic. So, games that stood out because of their art style.
Most recently, I was playing This War of Mine, which had a gorgeous art style to it, sort of black and white, pencil drawn, trying to survive in the middle of a war-torn kind of city. And
That's a good game.
yeah, it's a good game, and the art style really adds to the atmosphere of it.
And it's very dark and dreary, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's super dark and dreary. But that's the point. But it's just the art style itself is really nice, even if it wasn't sort of focused towards being dark and dreary. I like the semi-hand drawn kind of textures and stuff.
Speaking of hand drawn, Banner Saga had a beautiful art style.
Oh yes.
It's very reminiscent of let me see. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Evan Earl, I think that was one of the original artists behind Sleeping Beauty back in the early '60s. And the style for Banner Saga is very much influenced by his style, and I mean it looks gorgeous. It's like you're watching one of the older hand-drawn Disney movies as you're playing.
I can see that now that you mention it. That's true.
Yeah, it looks like an oil painting.
Yeah, I'll have to find the link, but some guy actually did a really cool side-by-side comparison where he took a lot of the scenes from Banner Saga and compare them to, I guess, the respective scenes in Sleeping Beauty, such as the main character design, the dragon and the serpent. It's actually really cool seeing the similarities. Yeah, it's a gorgeous game, and I love seeing games that have this really unique art style because I feel they tend to age better throughout the years as opposed to games that try to push photorealism.
Yeah, it's less focused on graphics, like hand drawn stuff that'll set you right for years to come because they'll still look great 10, 20 years down the road.
I mean, Journey did the same thing where you have, it's a very minimalistic kind of style. You have the vast landscape, then you have, just a very simple design for the character. Flower did the same thing. It's a very simple design. And I feel like these stylized choices tend to, I don't know, they stand out more in your mind.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, they do age better because the game that, pushes photorealism and you think looks gorgeous ends up having a much shorter tail and doesn't pan out as long. But what's funny is I still fall for that. I'm still, I thought King's Quest VII was the most beautiful game ever made. And I was like, video games are never going to look better than this. And then I had that same conversation with myself when Half-Life came out, and then Quake 3 and StarCraft. And all these games, you think, okay, this is it. We're at the peak of this mountain. Games will never look better. But I'm still falling for it. Right now, I'm looking at The Witcher 3 and going, games will never look better than that. We did it. Congratulations, pack it in.
Yeah, and actually, I had the same reaction with, Last of Us when it first came out. No, you're looking at it and you're like, my God, this game looks gorgeous. It's never going to get better than this. But then right now, when Chris asked the question, do you guys remember any games that had really interesting art style? Last of Us is the last game on my mind.
Yeah, it's because it strived more for realism than anything else. And, what's realistic in video games gets updated every other week.
Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of unexpected in a way. But you can't come back to those games 10, 15 years later because they don't hold up as well.
Man, that reminds me. Final Fantasy VII, I remember when that one first came out because it was one of the first uses of, the 3D CGI and the polygon character models. Mm-hmm. And at the time, you're sitting there, you're like, man, this looks so realistic. This is insane. This is gorgeous.
Yep. Yeah, I was there. I rode that train.
When they re-released it on PlayStation, I'm like, oh my God, I love this game. And I played all of 5 minutes of it. I'm like, man, I really want this to just stay a really nice memory because the art style does not hold up whatsoever.
Yeah. This is what I think some remasters do really well. They update the graphics enough so it sort of correlates with how you remember the originals to be.
And I would say, because speaking of remasters, that's what I loved about the Curse of Monkey Island. Not the Curse, but the Escape from Monkey Island and all that. Where their remasters, they actually kind of redid the art style and kind of modernized it a bit. And it worked great because it still kept a really nice, unique kind of style sensibility to it, rather than just put a pretty coat of paint over it.
And I really like those because they had the button where you could switch between.
Yeah,
that was a pretty good thing. A lot of times, they just take away if they just smooth the edges of things so that the jaggies are gone, that does a big sort of help towards making it more playable later on.
I don't know, because they did that with Grim Fandango, where they literally just they left the game as is, they left all the character models as is, and they just almost airbrushed the characters, and it doesn't look bad, but I mean you can clearly see it's an older game.
Mm-hmm. Is Grim Fandango one of the ones, in your opinion, that holds up because it had a unique art style? Or did they tread a little too close to the realism angle?
It wasn't at all realistic.
No, it wasn't, but it definitely falls in that weird gray area because, they did try for, like the 3D models and all that, and yeah, you do have that really unique art style with like the whole Calavera and the Day of the Dead style, where it makes it stand out, but when you look at it mechanically, you do see like those jagged edges, the clipping from the models, and it becomes really apparent when you look at the remastered edition too.
Mm.
So I don't know. That one kind of it's up in the air. Like I like the character models. I like thinking about them. Like Gladius looked awesome when he first introduced him because he's so unique. But then when you actually see them in motion, you can see his his arm kind of like punching through his skull because like the character model is clipping itself. It's like
right.
Maybe you should have kept this like a 2D more hand drawn style than go for the 3D model.
Mm. Mind if I jump back to your point about minimalism?
Yeah.
Again, Mirror's Edge springs to mind.
Oh
because, yeah. I think that game still looks amazing. It's aging, and it's kind of blatantly aging at that. But the art style and the art direction makes that it still looks amazing. The stark contrast between the whites and the blues and reds and stuff like that. It still looks incredible.
I really like how they actually worked the art style into the gameplay, where like the red was a clear indication of where you're supposed to be going and what objects you can interact with.
Yeah.
But it felt very organic, throughout the game as you're going, because like a lot of it's just you have like this massive white, dull color like backdrop, and then these bright reds kind of help guide you to where you're supposed to be, which really works with how fast paced the free running is supposed to be.
Mm. It just looked incredible, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. That was a good one. And that's it. If they kind of take their own spin and focus in a certain direction, like they have a clear view of the art that they want to make instead of trying to make it look as real as possible, I think they get a lot more time out of it.
I think that is also true for the BioShock franchise, because that art direction is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and even though that first game is getting old now, it still actually holds up better than some other things because there was enough of themselves and their art direction in it.
Yeah. It's still like the first time that you go into Rapture, when the bathysphere opens up and you can look through the window, you see the squid going by and you see the city in the distance. That still has an impact on me whenever I play it. And I play like once every year because it's one of my favorite games. And it still has the same impact as it had the first time I played it. And that's because just of how it looks, the whole Art Deco thing, it works really well. It's still as mysterious. It still looks as awesome.
See, I'm surprised you don't like the Fallout games because of that then, because especially Fallout 3 had like that, that old Art Deco kind of style where it married the post-apocalyptic future with that old 1920s kind of style.
Oh, I like how it looks. I don't like how it plays.
Okay, fair enough. Because I know, like, speaking of like that moment of awe in BioShock, Fallout had that. Fallout 3, when you first open the vault.
Oh yes.
And you step outside, and you have like that glare from the sun, and you just see the Capitol waste in front of you.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. No, I've got no problem with how it looks. I just don't like how it plays.
I think that we might be on the cusp of Fallout 3. And I think that those textures aren't going to hold up, in another 5 or 6 years.
There's always mods.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, like, I've been noticing that you're seeing more and more games taking chances and going for a more stylized approach, because I think we're reaching that point where the photorealism just kind of gives us diminishing returns.
Yeah, I think so. Art style is what makes games beautiful. Graphics certainly help if you want to be if you want to be realistic, but art style, art direction, I think is a little more important because that's what people remember.
That's good. I hope that we hit even larger diminishing returns on photorealism, because then you can't just head towards a specific destination, like let's make it look as realistic as possible. Then it sort of forces people to get creative.
Realism certainly has its place, but I like games that look really wild in terms of art style. Like, for instance, Transistor and Bastion, both two very, very good games.
Yeah, beautiful.
And even stuff like, Don't Starve, which looks amazing. And even Minecraft has its own place, because it has a very distinct style that people recognize instantly.
It's true.
And I don't really know the difference between one Call of Duty and the next, but I do know the difference between, certain art-heavy games, certain art-heavy games in the franchise.
That's true. There's definitely those titles that if they show you just a screenshot, you can immediately tell what game it is versus... I think there was like a running joke a while ago where they showed... I think it was just like a generic Battlefield with, like the first-person view of the guy in the gun, and it says, which game is this? A, Call of Duty, B, Battlefield, C, Medal of Honor. And, nobody can really tell the difference.
All of the above.
Because they all kind of strive for, that photorealism, dark, gritty colors. Meanwhile, like you said, games like, if you see a screenshot for Transistor, you'll be able to pick it up immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
I always like I like the big, clunky cartoon characters kind of art style. With the
Scribblenauts?
No, more like Jet Set Radio, like the big sneakers, right. Or like in World of Warcraft, the giant shoulder pauldrons. I like the exaggerated features. I like that kind of character design.
What did you think of Darksiders?
Darksiders was good-ish. I don't know. The character design was almost there. You're right. You're absolutely right. It was close, but it missed something. Something about it wasn't on point for me.
Well, it's funny because it was designed by, I think, Joe Madura, and he's a well-known comic book artist, and he does like a lot of old X-Men comics and stuff like that. It's really cool because like when you look at his the art book for it and the character, it's very, even though you're dealing with like heaven and hell and it's supposed to be really dark, somber themes, you have this character that's very brightly colored. He's got like the exaggerated gauntlets and like that super ridiculous physique. It's almost like a caricature of itself, and it's really cool because again, that's one of those art styles that's so recognizable. And I know a lot of people gave Darksiders crap because of the way it looked. No,
I liked it. I mean, it was missing maybe a little bit. Maybe it needed to be a little more cartoonish, I suppose.
Okay.
That might have been, but I liked the cloak and the weapon style and the gauntlets and all that stuff. That's basically, I guess, what I'm talking about. That was really cool. I think maybe they just went a little too realistic. For my preference, I like it to still seem kind of like cartoon physics still apply.
Okay.
World of Warcraft still holds up really well due to the art style. You mentioned it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It still looks beautiful. They just updated the character models with the new expansion, and they look better than ever. But that game will still look beautiful in a couple of years because they'll keep updating the engine, but the art style sort of allows for it to just stay beautiful for a long time because it's so cartoonish.
I think that's probably been one of the draws to why it's lasted so long, just because you said, because the art style, they definitely picked this, I don't want to say generic, but they picked this very safe-looking art style that it's cartoony to the point where no matter, 3-4 years from now, it'll still look good, as opposed to, games like EverQuest where they went for, realism the first off the bat, and then you can clearly see its age after a while.
Yeah.
I played in that the Splatoon test fire this weekend, where you could play it for an hour.
Yeah, how was that?
It was pretty good, man, but the art style was really great. They've got these giant clunky sneakers, and then the squids are all like super cute and adorable. It's cartoony and very cool, like art style wise. Gameplay wise, it's also pretty fun. You can buy shoes from a shrimp named Krusty Sean. He's a shrimp that sells shoes.
Huh.
The game's good, man. It's fun, but the art style of it is very unique with the running around and splattering paint everywhere. Just to see it in action, it all flows very smoothly, and I think it's one of those games that has chosen its art style and direction in a way that it will hold up for a long time. Now, whether people are playing it for a long time, I guess, is another question, but I think that it'll definitely stand the test of time.
It's the same with WildStar, because it looks awesome thanks to its art style.
I actually really like the art style for WildStar.
Yes, it
agree.
Looks really pretty.
Yeah, it's cool. They did the same thing with World of Warcraft there, where it was that very exaggerated cartoon look, and it looked more polished, and you had that whole sci-fi feel for it. So yeah, it definitely looks like a Pixar movie almost,
or like a Ratchet and Clank kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I like that stuff so much. That's the art direction I like the most, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's also a pretty good game, but too bad that it's sort of lost traction. It's got no traction now. It's losing momentum fast, which is a shame.
I think they just appeal to the hardcore crowd a little too much.
Conveniently forgetting that there is no longer a hardcore crowd.
I mean, there's a place for it, but I think they just, in their blind zeal to appease like the hardcore raider, they completely shut out the rest of the world, and that it doesn't work well.
The hardcore raider community is not big enough to sustain such a game.
Exactly.
Which is a shame, really, because I enjoyed my time with WildStar. I really did.
What is the other? What's the rest of the audience who's not raiding?
Slowly try to catch up to the rest of the raiders with the crazy attunement quests and things like that.
Well, the attunement quest isn't as hard as it used to be, people tell me, but I think it's too little too late now.
Well, no, like they added some cool stuff. Like I think, because I haven't played it in a while, but I remember you could pick like certain aspects in your class that would give you some fun story things to do. Like if you were an explorer, you'd have like fun jumping puzzles and you can discover things in the world. If you were like I guess like a combat-based class, you could actually do little like wave of enemy kind of horde mode gameplay sessions. I think you can become like an engineer and architect and build houses, and like you could actually build player housing, which is cool.
Yeah, like the paths and player housing, those were the two best things about that game, because that made the leveling experience that much less tedious, I guess. Because the leveling experience was, oh my god, it was tedious.
Any other games with a particular art style that we thought was cool?
Dishonored. I really liked the way that looked, because it looked like a pastel painting, like an oil painting.
I haven't played it.
All the textures were sort of smudged, and it just looked like a painting. And the way that the city that you played in looked, it was just awesome. It looked really good.
Would you call it like cell shaded in a way, or?
No, not at all. It's not cell shaded in the way that Borderlands is. It just looked like a painting.
That sounds neat.
It was a really good game, which is why I'm really hoping that Bethesda will announce Dishonored 2, because I can't wait to jump back into that universe, because it was a very interesting world.
I'm trying to think of games that aren't indie titles, because that's the only thing that I'm kind of like coming to mind when I think of like really unique art style. And I'm really hard pressed to find a more, I guess, like a AAA publisher that has produced a unique style like that. And I guess it kind of goes back to maybe AAA publishers don't want to take those chances and they go for what they know is safe.
What was the game with the princess and the city with the mouse in it? Child of Light, I think.
Oh yeah, that was from UB Art, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ubisoft, I think, made Child of Light. I think they also made Grow Home.
They also did Rayman Legends and Rayman Origins, which look awesome as well.
But in their defense, like Rayman was also an older IP they just kind of revitalized.
I will remember Rayman Legends over the older Rayman games.
Right. Well, I mean, that's also, I don't know. I feel like Rayman's kind of like not necessarily like cheating, but it wasn't like a unique art style that they decided suddenly come up with and took a risk on. It was literally just an older IP that they decided to brush up. So I don't know. I don't think that really qualifies as Ubisoft taking the leap into the stylized sections.
Do you think so? Because I think visually the newer Rayman games look wildly different from the older ones.
You think?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, like they're not like the cartoon, like the shading, but I think that's just more because they had the technology to improve on them. But I think it's still very similar to the old art style.
No, I think there's loads of new designs in there, and it looks fresher than it used to be.
Or who made that game for the Xbox One, Sunset Overdrive? Who made that?
God.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear, larger publisher moving towards a very unique art style. That's a pretty solid example of that.
I think, was it High Moon?
Insomniac.
Okay, sorry, Insomniac.
Oh, maybe they don't entirely count.
Oh, it does. But I won't remember this game. Like I had a tough time remembering it now, but it looked cool. I'm looking at images right now, and it certainly looked cool.
Yeah, but Insomniac games, like they're the ones that did Ratchet and Clank, so you could definitely see like that kind of influence in Sunset Overdrive.
Ratchet and Clank, and Jack and Daxter. Those games. Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Beyond Good and Evil is a great one.
Yeah, they had a really cool art style as well. They've got Borderlands has got a pretty unique art style as well, because you can instantly pick out a Borderlands game now. Like, I don't think they're the only ones, but they're the only really prolific game developer that are making those art style, those cel-shaded style games now.
I guess, what's been your favorite art style that you've seen recently, like in a game?
BioShock, definitely. BioShock Infinite. That was amazing. The whole city of Columbia, It was beautiful.
Okay, what about you, Sam?
I'm trying to think over the last year. I like a lot of Nintendo stuff. As far as art direction goes, I like what they do. I mean, I guess it's kind of been the same since forever, but I like it. So
It's also always cheery and colorful, isn't it?
I like that stuff. That really appeals to me.
To me, actually, Darkest Dungeon. It's an indie title, and I am in love with the art style because it is so reminiscent of Mike Mignola's Hellboy. I don't know if you guys ever read the old Hellboy or seen like the art style for it.
No, I've just seen the
Oh
movies.
man, the comic art style is it's gorgeous. It's very gothic. There's a lot of contrast between like the bright reds and shadows, and it's so fantastic. And Darkest Dungeon, it's almost like it just ripped a page out of one of those old Hellboy comic books, and it looks fantastic.
Awesome. Well, I think we have exhausted this particular topic.
I'm gonna agree with you there.
I would say so.
So, I want to talk to you guys about stories. Are they integral to the game experience? Because I think they are, but I know for a fact that Sam doesn't really care for stories.
I say I could take them or leave them. I think that stories are basically just another mechanic in a way, as much as jumping or as shooting somebody in the face. They're just another thing. They're just another piece of the puzzle. I don't think that they're the goal.
Well, they're a driving mechanic in most games. Think about Mass Effect, for instance. Think about the BioShock series. Those games wouldn't be what they are without the story.
Sure, absolutely. And at least the way that I've seen it interpreted before is lidology versus narratology, which are really kind of heavy words, but basically the questions they're asking is a game a system of rules or is a game a kind of narrative?
Well, some games are just narrative experiences.
So that's the sort of the crux of the issue. Like, what makes a game? Is it just the interactive rules and limits, or is it the overall story that it's telling? And for me personally, a game is the mechanics. A game is the way it feels when you move and jump, and a game is its laws, rules, and limits, and finding how to reorganize that puzzle or pushing against the wall and finding exactly what you can do within the space that you've been given.
Yeah, but the story gives what you do context.
Sure, absolutely, but it's not necessary. Like, if you're satisfied enough from tinkering with something, then that higher level of the narrative is less important. I'm not saying it should be gone completely, but I think for me, it's just another background sort of dressing.
Well, I think it brings up an interesting question because when you're talking about like whether or not it's essential to the overall experience, it depends on what your goal for your experience is. Because I mean, I guess from Sam's point of view, why do you play games?
I play games to mess with mechanics and find exactly what I can do within the confines of a game. Just to be given interesting puzzles and interesting challenges and things like that.
So a game like Pillars of Eternity, because I remember you mentioned that in the first episode and how you've been playing it and you like it, but is that a game that you're playing mainly just because of the combat mechanics and that's the main appeal? Could you care less about the story?
The story is fine. I think it does its job there. But like I said, that's how I think of story. It's like a wrench. Like mostly when I play Pillars of Eternity, I'm there to customize my characters and tweak the combat stuff and play those combat encounters.
Really?
Yeah, mostly.
I think a story is very important to my experience because a story is what draws me in initially, and that is what gets me invested in continuing to play.
I want to see just interesting puzzles mostly. It like Pillars of Eternity, that story, the way that I interact with that story is I'm playing it like another puzzle. Like I want to find the conversation options that makes me benevolent, you know, like not I want to pick the conversation options that I think are going to take the story in a direction that I want to see the events unfold in this manner. I'm just picking it based on a stat. Like I want to increase my benevolence stat, so this is the conversation option I pick. And the story's fine. It's just not it's not what you would put on the poster.
It's really interesting how you guys have like polarizing views on how the story like relates to the game. Because I know from Chris's point of view, the story is the main draw to it, and like the gameplay mechanics are just kind of what, you know, helps carry you on from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it almost, in a way, tempers the rate at which you consume the story. And for Sam, it's the complete opposite, where you're literally just there just to play the mechanics, and the story is just something, kind of like the little dressing on the cake to give it a justification.
No, I really like getting involved in the story, getting involved in the lore, getting to know all the characters, talking to the characters, finding out who I am as a person within the game world. And if that's not there, then I'm not saying that a game can't be good if there's an absence of story. I'm just saying that I prefer it if there was a story. I think the coolest thing about games is that they can be narrative experiences where you can influence the story. That is what draws me to games.
I get my fix for that from like books and movies and stuff like that. That's where I get. I'm not a robot with no desire for story and narrative. I just get them through different formats. And the thing that appeals to me about the format of games has very little to do with story and more to do with, playing games.
Honestly, for me, it depends on the genre. Like, if I'm playing a fighting game, for example, I could care less about the story. I don't need a justification to beat up, the other guy. But then titles like, I don't know, it depends, because I've played games that are really mechanic intensive, and I do tend to forget the story after a while, like XCOM, and XCOM Enemy Unknown, Enemy Within, Long War. Mm-hmm. It's really cool because,
right.
They're very combat intensive. There's a lot of min-maxing with, like, the weapons you can equip and the research and stuff. And there's this overall narrative of the aliens attacking, but I don't know, like, that kind of game, after a while, you really just do play just to get from, like, encounter to encounter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The story just kind of fades into the background. I mean, I think that, it should be there because it does add something, but it's just a piece of the puzzle.
Well, I guess in Sam's case, have you ever encountered a game that just had a terrible story to the point where it ruined the gameplay experience?
No, because I don't notice them enough to know when that's bad or good. I've never had a game ruined by a story, and I've never had a game propelled into the atmosphere by a story either.
What about Chris? Opposite question for you. Have you ever had a game whose mechanics ruined the story for you?
I wouldn't say ruined, but I don't play the BioShock games because I like how they play. They're serviceable shooters at best. They should be adventure type games because that would fit the story better. But mechanically, it's nothing special and it's okay. But I'll keep playing those games because the story is so amazing.
Okay, but so like even though you're not a fan of the mechanics, though, they don't dissuade you from finishing this for the sake of the story.
No, if the story's good enough, I'll play it, and I'll play it until the cows come home.
Do you just knock down the difficulty?
Sometimes. If a game is just frustratingly hard just for the sake of being hard, and it's standing in the way of my narrative experience, then yes, I will.
BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
I don't know, that 1990s mode was just...
Yeah, the 1990s mode.
I don't know, like, you said it's difficult for the sake of being difficult, and I just thought, like, BioShock Infinite 1990 mode, it was literally just, hey, let's take away ammo, and hey, let's have everything hit you like a Mack truck.
Yeah, and I never played that mode. I played it for like 10 minutes. I didn't get why I was supposed to be playing this.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't improve the narrative in any way, and it just brings to the foray how just meh the mechanics are. So I have no desire to play that. But if that was the only mode available, I would play the hell out of that just to finish the story, because the story was what drew me in.
I'm trying to think if there was a game that I've played that has either had a story that was so bad that ruined the good mechanics, or vice versa, and I don't know.
I can tell you that I remember when I was a kid playing Super Nintendo games, I loved RPGs. And if I think back on that right now, I remember maybe two things that happened in any of those stories, but I remember like moves and spells that I could cast and stuff that I could do and combat encounters. I remember those like crystal clear, but I mean, maybe something about a floating continent, but I remember there was a ninja with a dog and you could throw ninja stars, like I remember the stuff about mechanically. That's what I recall the most out of older games that I've played, even though I was playing RPGs, which are arguably, very story-driven kind of experiences.
Not necessarily, because RPGs are also very laden with, complex mechanics on them.
I guess that's true.
I guess, do you enjoy, like, the Telltale series style games?
I haven't really played much of them. I played a little bit of the beginning of The Walking Dead. and I never finished it.
That should say enough.
Yeah, I guess it should.
Well, no, because I'm wondering because like I guess you can look at it from the point of view where like yes, you know, like the conversations are puzzles for you to solve, but overall those are games that are almost devoid of mechanics for the sake of being narrative.
Yeah, and I eat that shit up. Whenever Telltale announces a new game, like, I'm on this. I will buy it, and I will play it, and I will most definitely enjoy it. I love The Walking Dead. I love The Wolf Among Us, and I am loving
Oh my God, Wolf Among
the game
Us is
of
great.
Yeah, I'm loving Game of Thrones as well. So yeah, I'm absolutely fine with games being devoid of mechanics in favor of just being a pure narrative experience that just give you a bunch of choices to define who you are within that story. I'm absolutely fine with that. Like, I remember characters. I remember plot twists. I don't really remember mechanics unless those mechanics are especially awesome.
But is that a game, though?
Well, yeah, you can still. It's still an interactive medium. It still needs you in order to go somewhere.
But kind of barely, right?
See, now you're breaking into the whole like, what do you consider a game then? Like, is it interactive medium? Is there like a complex set of mechanics that dictate what a game should and shouldn't be?
Can't it be all those things?
See, I feel like have you ever played any of the I guess Japanese visual novels?
I have not.
I have, yeah.
Because I feel like you'd get a kick out of those. There's a lot of them on PSP, like Danganronpa Kingdom. There's
I played 999 not too long ago.
Yeah, 999. They're all games that are the mechanics are very, very simple, and they're more about it's literally like an interactive book. Those are visual novels. I think you get a kick out of those.
I really like those choose your own adventure style books that I read as a kid. I sort of look for the same thing in games nowadays. I want to be able to go on an adventure and follow an awesome story, and if my choices help the story progress in different ways, then amazing. That's why I like the Mass Effect series so much. Because I can change stuff.
Do you think that on some level, perhaps having that level of interactivity and that level of choice causes the main thread of the story to be diluted because they essentially have to write it 4 or 5 times for all the different choices the player can make? Do you think that you get less of a story overall because it had to be split?
Could be. Just adds to the replayability for me because there's more story that I can unlock. That story is branching doesn't mean that the individual branches are of less quality.
It depends, because I can see what Sam means. Because like when you have a game like Mass Effect, for example, where you have like 4 different ways you can answer a situation, and those situations pop up like every 2 minutes, I can see how there might be a little bit of, I guess, lack of quality, or like you said, diluted content after a while, where it's a lot of work to come up with like 27 different permutations of an outcome. So I can see how they might kind of get lazy.
I wonder if you collapse all those choices into one single crystal focused thread of a story, if that story isn't 100 times better than this fragmented thing that they want to tell you, which might be fine, but still the potential, I think.
For me, I like how The Witcher has handled it so far, where you do have like your dialogue trees, but the dialogue trees are they're more like for informational purposes, where you get a lot of background on the story. And every now and then you'll have these major moments in the story where you can make a very drastic decision, and then the story actually will take a drastic branching path from then on out.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because I think at that point, because you only have 1 or 2 options and it can go from there on out, I think it kind of preserves the quality of the story in a way, because they're not writing themselves into a corner with like 18 different like choices for you. Like Witcher 2, for example, there's a part where you have to choose between the guy you came into this town with called Roche, and he's the guy that saved you from being executed, or this Scoia'tael, which is like an elf criminal, and he basically offers you that, hey, I know I can help find the guy that did this to you, and you have like a split second to make a choice of either betraying the guy you're with or sticking with him. And I know when you make that choice, the story will actually, you still go to the same area, but you end up in 2 different sides of it, which is really interesting.
I do know that at least the split second thing you said, I think that's one of the best innovations that has come out of storytelling in forever, is when they give you a really tough decision and then they start running down the meter. I know I've seen that in at least a little bit of The Walking Dead I played. I think that's pretty innovative, because I'll sit there and look at that for an hour.
Yeah, I like it. It makes choices feel more organic in a way.
And it gives it a sense of urgency. Like, you have to choose now.
Yeah, and it's not like Mass Effect where you just sit there and let Shepard stare awkwardly at like whoever just asked him a question, and you think about, well, if I say yes, and it'll ring up my Paragon points by this much, and it's a very quick.
Yep, that's me. That's me.
Yes or no, make the choice, and then live with the consequence.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't concern myself with being a paragon or a renegade. I usually take my time to think about what would I do in this situation if I was this person, and that is half the fun for me. Because that if in Mass Effect specifically, like, I've always accepted, like, people hate the ending, right? And I've always accepted that I will never be able to control the ending. I'll just be able to control who I am while I'm on this path, and that is enough for me. I love that. I love being able to make choices to sort of make my personality the way I would like it to be.
I see, but I see there's a difference between like making your personality the way you'd like it to be, like in a game or Mass Effect where you can think about your choice, and there's the choices where it's based on what your personality actually is, and that's when you have like that really quick, like 2-second split decision to make.
The problem is that by putting in a meter, like the Paragon meter, they sort of push you in one direction. Or they push me in one direction because I'm going to pick a side, and then all the dialogue choices I pick from that point are going to be getting more points in that side because there are actual game benefits from being that way. And so as soon as you tell me that, like, if you are, Jedi Knight, if you are Paragon, if you're benevolent good guy, we're going to give you some stuff. At that point, I'm not making my own decisions anymore. I'm making the decisions to get the stuff.
Right.
Because I want my bonuses,
I guess it all comes back to what you want out of a game. Like, you just want to see meters and stats go up.
That's part of it. That's part of it. But it's also because they can't just be... There's got to be a way to make them go up in the right way, or it sort of has to be... There has to be a trick to it, or you have to figure something out, not just press a button and watch numbers increase. I don't like that as much, but I love really in-depth, crunchy decision-making kind of stuff.
Right. But without a decent story to frame that, what's the point?
I mean, the point is the game itself. I mean, I guess that's why I like so many board games. I mean, they have themes, and those are fine, but most of the time, at least for me, the themes are just second nature. I'm interested in building my little economy and calculating trade-offs, and doing this now means this in 6 turns versus, this other thing. I'm not as interested in playing a role or being in an environment because the entertainment value for me from video games comes from those decisions, just interesting decisions.
And it's really funny, the contrast between like this attitude about not really caring about the story and how you don't enjoy at the same time like those open world sandbox games unless you're given a story or a direction.
Direction, not story. They're different concepts.
Well, they sort of belong together. A story gives you direction. It moves the gameplay forward.
It's the motor, yeah. That's interesting to think about.
No, like I said, it just seemed like an interesting contrast because you mentioned like a game like Minecraft you hate because there's no story to it. Well, there's no reason for you to do anything. You're literally just put in a island and told to do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's actually even worse because they're asking me to make my own story.
Yeah, but it's funny because that game,
nightmares.
You could argue that it's reduced to pure mechanics.
But towards what end, though?
Playing the game
for the sake of mechanics.
So the goal of the mechanics can also be the story, or the way the game plays tells its own story.
Well, yeah, that's where emergent gameplay comes from.
But if you put me in Minecraft, but then there was a story, but the goals and objectives didn't line up as the building blocks towards that overall story, that wouldn't really help me. I guess if you added story to Minecraft, you would, just find an encyclopedia somewhere that tells you about the history of Minecraft?
Well, there is a story in Minecraft. It is bare bones, but there's a story. There's even an end boss.
I think that's a good change that they made. I just see it as another thing. Like, as much as the way you swing a sword, your plot is another thing like that. As much as a backdrop and, equipment upgrades, talent trees, all that stuff, I think a story isn't separate from that. It's just another one of those building blocks. The story itself is just another mechanic in a way.
For a lot of people, it's a story they remember. Like, people remember the twists in BioShock. People remember the story in Dishonored, even though it was a bit bare bones.
Yeah, that's true. Like to this day, I still remember the "Would you kindly" twist.
Exactly. And people all remember the ending to Spec Ops: The Line.
Oh god, Spec Ops: The Line was fantastic. See, that's another game. The Spec Ops: The Line had a fantastic story, and whenever I recommend that to anybody, it's got very generic gameplay, but it's all about the story for that game.
See, that's what I mean. The story made the mechanics sort of, well, the mechanics were meh. They were all right, but the story is what you remember. The story is what you play it for. So in a lot of instances, and for a lot of people, the story is integral to the experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I definitely remember more games based on the story than I do for mechanics. Like the mechanics are very engrossing at the time of actually playing. They're good for instant gratification, but for me, it's the story that has lasting power.
Exactly. And that was my point.
At least with BioShock in particular, I think that the "Would you kindly" thing is a really interesting combination of things, because that's something you could only do in an interactive medium where the player has, control in their actions.
Yeah, that's why that twist was so interesting, because it sort of brings up questions about how important you are as a player within that story. So the mechanics are important to the story itself.
Well, I liked it because like that one 5-minute revelation kind of made you suddenly go back and reassess the whole concept of player agency throughout the game.
So for some games, stories are very important, but for some people, they don't really care about that, and they go for the mechanics, which is also quite fine. Like,
I agree with you.
It's
It's chocolate and peanut butter, man. Like I think you got to have both to varying degrees.
Yeah, we usually talk about stuff on the show that has no real answer, because it all comes down to personal preference.
Yeah, like I think at the end of it, it just comes down to what the person's end goal is for that particular game. Some people enjoy just like want to have a really fun mechanic session that loosely tied to the story, and other people are more into the narrative experience. So,
but you having your narrative experience doesn't take away from my mechanics enjoyment,
but it can and it will. Sam. I would make a personal goal.
So we can live together in peace, and I don't mind a little bit of story. But one of my favorite games is Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup on the computer, and I've been playing that game for years trying to beat it. And there's basically the story of that is try to make it to the bottom of this dungeon and then escape.
So that's enough for you to play a game?
Yeah, it is. And in a way, that game, just like the environments and the challenges kind of become the story, like you solving these puzzles and stuff and being in these weird environments and killing all these orcs and stuff. They make I guess you make your own story. And at that point, it doesn't bother me. That is one of the most mechanically dense games that I've ever played. And I've never beat it. And I still play it, whenever I think about it. I'll probably play it again after this. But they give you a goal, and then that goal is the story. Get to the bottom, get the orb, and then get back out. That's it.
Well, some of us want a bit more than that. Because with video games, it's a given. You have to beat this. Oh, really? Cool. We'll do that. But some of us want more reasons to beat it, I guess.
Read a book, man.
I don't need to read a book, because games have got great stories.
I guess jumping off of what we've been playing, it kind of made me think about replayability in games, and what is it that makes a game kind of stand the test of time and make you want to go back to it. I was actually talking about how I was replaying Sleeping Dogs, and for whatever reason, there's just something about it that I've played that game at least once a year since it's been out, just because it's so much fun. The experience is always feels fresh, and even though I know the story, I know the plot twist, I know all the ins and outs of it, I still enjoy it. And for me, it's almost like I'm watching one of those old action movies that I'm there along for the ride. Part of it's familiarity, because I used to live in Hong Kong, and playing a game that takes place in a similar setting, it almost makes you feel nostalgic for where you used to live. But I don't know, I'm just kind of curious about what games you guys have played that for whatever reason you just keep coming back to no matter what.
Warcraft.
The RTS?
Yeah, Warcraft 3 specifically, plus the Frozen Throne. I can just finish those games and start them right back up again, because the experience is just so enjoyable.
What is it? Is like the mechanics, the story of it, or?
It's a mixture of the story, the art style. Conveniently, we talked about those two things earlier. But mostly it's because of how it plays and the way the mechanics present themselves. It's just a very good RTS.
It is a good one, yeah.
Like base building is very enjoyable.
When you go back to it, do you play online or do you play through the story?
That's mostly just online skirmishes or the story. Either way is good for me. I just really like that game.
What about you, Sam?
I never really replay things. I wring them out and suck all the juice, and then I just toss them aside.
Well, I guess that's it for this segment. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, I don't tend to go back and replay things. I don't generally go back and redo a lot of stuff. There's so many things out there that I'm always looking for whatever the new experience is.
Really? Is there no game series or specific game that you're so in love with that you just want to jump back into it every once in a while?
No, I'm thinking. I mean, there's PC games that I'll pick up, once a year, but that's because I've never beat them, like NetHack and Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup and stuff like that.
Right.
But generally, after I've played it, I don't go back to it. Yeah, it's just a difference of the way that I consume media, and like I said, it's because there's always something new to play. So the reason the question I run into is I say, well, why would I play something that I already know what's going to happen?
Is it just it's like a one-off experience for you?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, it is awesome, and it was, and games were awesome when I played them, but it won't be as awesome again because I'm not going to it with fresh eyes.
What about when you watch movies or like reread books? Like, do you ever engage in that medium more than once?
Not on purpose.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I have accidentally found myself rereading a book. I started reading Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson, and I got halfway through it before I realized I had already read it before.
There's been about 600 pages worth of deja vu here.
And so I finished it because I started it, so I just went ahead and went all the way through it. Some old Nintendo games I'll come back to. Some of the multiplayer puzzle stuff, like Yoshi's Cookie and Dr. Mario. So I guess replayability in that way I'm interested in, but as far as something like replaying an RPG, I'm not going to do that.
Right, and what about games with, for instance, permadeath or stuff like that? Like games that are randomized every time that you die?
Yeah, I'll play those until I have them figured out, right? Like, until I wouldn't say beat them, because beating them can be different from mastering them. But I'll generally play one game until it's done, and then play the next game. I also don't play a lot of things at the same time.
Wow, that's actually interesting. So you don't have a favorite film or a favorite game or a favorite movie or something like that, because you never really go back to something?
Yeah, I don't deal in favorites. I deal in like, if you ask me what my favorite movie is, I'll tell you the name of a movie that's in my top 10. Right? Like, narrowing it down to a single thing is really difficult.
Wow.
But that's me, that's just like how I am with things. The same way with books. I don't read more than one book at a time. I read one book until it's done, and then I read the next book. But
I guess even those movies in your top 10, you wouldn't willingly rewatch them of your own volition.
No, probably not. But if it was on, I guess I would watch it. I know.
I wouldn't bother to change the channel.
Yeah, it's weird, right? I believe, and I wouldn't even rank them in numerical order. I would just say it's in there somewhere.
I love your devil may care attitude, that's for sure.
That's the way that I interact with media.
And like you mentioned, not really, I guess once you know the story, you don't really want to experience it. But for example, like I was saying, Sleeping Dog, there's a plot twist about somebody getting murdered that's close to you and all this stuff. And even knowing that, I don't know, for me, the game itself is just the experience of it, of driving around Hong Kong. The combat system's so much fun that, I don't know, there's just something about it that, even though knowing what's going to happen and knowing the way the story progresses, because it's not like it changes. It's not like you can kind of suddenly decide to place, make a different choice. It's very linear, but it's just the overall experience for me warrants a replay, just because it was so enjoyable. It's like playing Blood Dragon again. It was very tongue-in-cheek humor, and it's just, I don't know. It's more, I guess it's one of those scenarios where the mechanics are kind of what draws you back in a way, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what draws me there in the first place is that initial kind of stranger in a strange land learning experience. Like, here's this thing in front of me that I don't know anything about, and the whole thing gradually comes into focus as you play it, and you begin to understand how these things interact with each other and move. And then if you start over, you already have all that. Everything's already in clear focus. And the focusing process is not concentration-wise, but becoming clear is what draws me to video games. So if I've already played something...
Would you say when you're playing a game, it's almost like a finite... Like, your experience is... It's a finite experience for you? Like, it'll have an end eventually?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about if a game has a branching story? And once you finish a game, you can go back and do the opposite of what you did on your first playthrough. So your experience will be totally different.
I've never done that.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never done that.
That's entire years of game development wasted
That's
on
what
you.
I'm saying. I'm not even... Because I've already... The problem is that even though there is something else to learn down those other roads, I already know everything at the bedrock of figuring out playing the game, like all of its systems and mechanisms. So the fact of seeing something from the other side of the story isn't particularly compelling.
You're a murder hobo.
Yeah. Wait, what?
It just hit me. You're a murder hobo.
What's murder hobo?
Okay, a murder hobo is a Dungeons and Dragons, like a D&D term, where murder hobo is the person that doesn't really care about the story or what's going on. They just want to get in a fight and kill things. Like they're the guy that just like
kind of violent. I don't know.
No, but it's not necessarily. Well, I mean, like kill things in the sense like Dungeons and Dragons is all about mechanics, and it's the combat mechanics. Obviously, it's you get into an encounter, you fight, you kill whatever the enemy is. And that's what you refer to murder hobos. They're just people that don't, give a rat's ass about the story. They just want to get into the meat and bones and crunch numbers.
If I played Dungeons and Dragons and I was a dungeon master leading a campaign, what would happen is I would go through the story and the characters and all that until I had been a monk and I had been a cleric and I had been everything and fought everything. And then we would start playing Shadowrun, or we would start playing Pathfinder or something like that. Because at that point, it's just kind of repeat content. It's kind of boring. Even if you put a different spin on it.
You would be the worst dungeon master ever.
I don't think so.
You're a murder hobo. You just want to get into the meat and bones, like the mechanics, and just play that. The story is just kind of like a little vessel until... It's like the way you kill time until the next encounter.
Yeah, it would be kind of funny, like if you were a dungeon master and you would say something and someone in the party would mishear you and ask you to repeat that. Nope, we did this. Moving on.
Moving forward.
I could see Sam creating a character that has a negative modifier to patience. So whenever you're in the diplomatic talks at story, he's just constantly rolling for for patience. Like, nope, okay, sorry, I'm out of patience. Gonna start a fight.
Constantly ticking down meter.
You're like the personification of the concept of moving on. Just no.
Yeah, that's true. But there's so much out there. There's so many games. There's so many books. There's so much media to consume. Why do something twice?
Well, sometimes you go back to games that you've already played because you can't really remember what happened in that game, and you want to just re-experience something because you've basically just forgotten what it was like.
Or sometimes you remember what happened and it was an enjoyable experience and you want to relive it.
Yeah.
Maybe. I believe you.
So Enrique, have you got any other games that you just keep coming back to?
This might be a little bit different, but Sid Meier's, like Civilization 5.
Oh, God, yes.
But again, I think that's just more because of the mechanics of it, because I like that kind of, just the way the game is set up.
That game is dangerous, man.
Yeah, that's one of those games, maybe an hour, and then you look at the clock and it's been 12 hours have gone by, and you're like, what, you're wallowing in your own feces in a pool of your own bile. You don't know what happened.
Yeah, there's open bags of Dorito just around the room.
Yeah, see, but that's one of those games that it has no real story. It's very flimsy. Like, hey, here, conquer the world.
Yeah, that one is you build your own story.
It's very engrossing.
It is. Some of my best stories of stuff that happened to me in games come from Civ 5 because it's such an enjoyable experience and it's such an interesting one as well. So yeah, I keep coming back to Civ 5 because I want more of that experience. And it's different every time because the AI will do different things and it's always sort of unpredictable, especially when you tell the AI to be unpredictable, just sort of shuffle personalities. So yeah, I always come back to that game. It's a really good game. Sam wouldn't. He would just play it for 5 hours and deinstall.
I would play it for. I think I played it for many hours, and then uninstalled it, and I've never played it again. It's a great game, though.
Oh, it is.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Do you find that, at least for Sam, like that games have more replayability if there's a multiplayer component to them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, the experience is different every time that you go online because people are unpredictable.
I mean, if I have people over, I'll still play Mario Golf, and I'll still play Yoshi's Cookie, and I'll still watch my wife just crush grown men in Dr. Mario. So multiplayer stuff absolutely has a replayability component to it because there's still something to figure out there.
Which games do you come back to? Which multiplayer games?
Mostly stuff in the house, like controller stuff. Old Nintendo games. Palamedes is a good one on the NES. I put a Raspberry Pi inside a Nintendo and then soldered up actual controller ports so that you can plug in the actual NES controllers.
What?
Nice.
So we play that a lot. So a lot of NES games we tend to come back to and play.
That's awesome.
Over and over.
How's the processing power on the Raspberry Pi?
Enough to run an NES emulator. I don't know exactly. I'm not super techie. It was kind of a pain to set up, but yeah, multiplayer replayability is where I guess I find a lot of it.
It's what drew me back to Destiny for like the 4 months that I played it because of that multiplayer component, the Crucible. I thought that was very enjoyable. It's kind of hard to master as well.
Yeah, I think that's the point where I get bored is when I feel like mastery is within my grasp or I can see where it goes from here. I just like to be surprised. I guess that's all it is. I just like to experience new, fresh things that I've never done before.
Right.
I don't know what that is on a personality test. It's like a type 7 or something like that.
I can't imagine never playing Mass Effect or Dragon Age ever again, just because I've played through it once.
I mean, different strokes for different folks.
Oh yeah, definitely. To each their own,
Yeah.
and all are equally valid. It's just I've never really met someone who would just play something for once and just lets it go, especially if he really enjoyed the experience. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, because that's the thing that I enjoyed was having it be new and having it be, fresh, brand new, interesting, innovative. I've never done this before.
Right.
And so the shine goes off that apple. I mean, it's a bummer in a lot of ways, but it's never going to be as good as the first time.
Well, that was a great way to wrap that up, actually. Enrique, have you got anything else to add?
No, that definitely. I feel like I would taint anything Sen just said with any wording. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
But I'm wrong though. I don't. It's not the right way to live. It's just the way that works for me.
No, I mean it's like Chris said. Like it's a really interesting outlook because I've never really met someone that has that kind of mentality when it comes to games where they're one-off experiences where they don't really care for story, but at the same time they do want direction and they're not 100% sold on just mechanics. And it's contradictory, but it's really interesting how it all kind of like meshes well.
And that concludes episode 3 of the Select Characters podcast. We would love to hear all your thoughts on the topics discussed in this episode. If you want to join in on the discussion, you can visit the True Gaming subreddit over at reddit.com/r/True Gaming and leave a comment in the episode thread. If you have any questions for us, or if you have a great idea for a topic you would like us to discuss on the show, you can send an email to selectcharacters@gmail.com or tweet to us by sending a message to @selectpodcast. From all of us here at Select Characters, we would like to thank you all for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe to us via RSS feed by pointing your favorite podcatcher to feeds.feedburner.com/Select Characters podcast, or you can search for us on the iTunes Store. More links will be in the description. So once again, thank you all for listening, and we hope to see you again next Wednesday. Bye!
Bye!
Goodbye.